Deeney, decent ball. Ismaïla Sarr away from Van Dijk, away from Lovren. Ismaïla Sarr!
Pretty much sat in this seat, maybe a little bit further along, and expecting, well, I'm not sure what I was expecting. I was concerned for Watford.
We was right here in these very seats, yeah.
Yes, I was in the press box here, so like most people, expecting just to see Liverpool take another step closer to ending that 30-year wait for the title.
I was diagnosed with leukemia, and then Ben came to our house and he promised me and Harrison to be mascots at the Liverpool game, and then it happened.
Managed to get her booked in for the Liverpool game, but it was always going to be a bit of a tough ask because she wasn't feeling so great, and it was always a bit sort of, iffy whether she can actually come to the game, whether she's going to be able to see it through, all that kind of stuff. But she did. She felt well enough for that Liverpool game in particular. Got in a wheelchair, got down to the stadium, boom, sort of skirting around the corners and all that kind of stuff. She was good to go.
Yeah, this is the seat I've been sitting in with my dad for the past 15 years or so. So yeah, familiar territory in that day, mate. That's one that I won't forget for a long time.
Because of the form that Liverpool were in, they were on a run of 18 wins, unbeaten in about 40 odds, almost marching towards the title. And Watford, I think, had just been beaten by Manchester United the weekend before. I think they'd been done 3-0, and I think they hadn't won for about 5 or 6. And I can remember thinking, I'm a bit concerned for the Hornets. If they don't start very well, there could be goals here.
I was excited, but it was really nerve-wracking because all those people watching us.
You alright, Gonska?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
You're not nervous now?
No.
No, you look a million, that's why.
Yeah, I'd say it was a mood of kind of supreme confidence and optimism. I think main memory of that day is I don't think I'd ever seen the media room here quite so packed. It was billed to be a historic day in English football, with Liverpool set to break that record for most consecutive top flight wins. They were on 18. Everyone expected them to make it 19. 44 games unbeaten. The Premier League title race was effectively already over in February. So Liverpool were just an absolute juggernaut at the time, and everyone expects them to keep on rolling.
Ouais, sauf que la semaine qu'on prépare Liverpool, on a bien travaillé cette semaine-là. On disait que Liverpool c'est une équipe comme nous, parce que il y avait beaucoup de stars là-bas. Nous, il n'y a pas beaucoup. Nous, on est dit que c'est un match, on va donner tout. Après, on voit ça va se passe en tout le match. Quand on est venu.
To be honest, very optimistic. I thought, we were lucky if we could keep it to 2-0, because obviously Liverpool were going for that unbeaten run, going all season without being beaten.
I think maybe what had become a slight distraction was it's suddenly become a lot of talk about the Invincibles. Could they follow in the footsteps of Wenger's team and go the entire top flight season unbeaten? So maybe that had created almost a bit of talk and maybe a little bit of pressure that they obviously for most of the season they'd set the pace and blown everyone else away. I think the lead was 22 points at the top, but yeah, despite that, I don't because the results have still been so good. I don't think anyone had any big concerns from a Liverpool point of view going into the game.
Honestly, whenever you play against Liverpool or Man City, they're the two teams that always sort of not fill me with dread, but makes me a little bit anxious, because I know they're the two teams that, if they're popping, if they're on form and they're, everything's working like it should be, they can cause you some serious problems. Like I say, as a goalkeeper, that they can honestly score 4 or 5 goals, which they showed earlier in the season. They're a problem, they really are. So we were hoping that we didn't catch them on one of those days. That's the first thing. But yeah, when the game came around, it was, it literally couldn't have gone any better. It was incredible. I didn't know, but I had to walk her out onto the pitch. But it was cool. Like I was so buzzing to do that anyway, because I could see how much it meant to her. But then I didn't know she had the GoPro on her as well, which was wicked because it captures everything, kind of thing. And I remember saying to her, "God, you're leaving like trail marks on the pitch, kind of thing." There was 2 lines where the wheelchair had left marks on it.
I was going to leave tyre marks on the pitch. And that was quite funny.
And I was saying, "Mate, this is going to be on telly, you know, people are going to see your trail marks all game long on the telly." But no, she was absolutely top class. Her brother was top class as well, and I'd like to think they bought us a little bit of extra luck that day.
Watford played pretty well, and they I think Pearson had said beforehand, we are going to have to play at our maximum to stand any chance of getting anything from the game. And I think they did. Watford were right on it, and it caught Liverpool maybe a little bit by surprise.
Actually, within the first 10 to 15 minutes, we grew into the game. We started to build a bit of momentum up, and I thought, you know what, we've got a chance here. There was a couple of opportunities where I think Deulofeu cut inside on the right before his injury.
You know, Jerry was a big player for us. He was our match winner. It's as simple as that. That's what Jerry was for us. He was our match winner. That moment of brilliance where he would get one out of his feet and stick it in the top corners.
Van Dijk lent upon Deulofeu, who has stayed down. Referee stopped the game, and Deulofeu's going to need treatment here.
Yeah, Pereira for Deulofeu. It's a great swap because Pereira, you know, technically is just as good as Deulofeu was when he was at Watford.
I think Troy lobbed Alisson and Sarmer's got it at the back post. So I thought, you know what, there's a chance we've caught Liverpool on an off day.
Half time came and it was 0-0, and you're still thinking, well, Watford have played well, but Liverpool could easily up a gear here.
Nigel Pearson disappears down the tunnel with much to content him. I guess the bad news from a Watford perspective is that there are 45 minutes still to play, and 45 minutes against this Liverpool team is a very, very long time.
Do you know what? They'll be okay now because, you know, half time they've got through unscathed. Klopp will make some tactical changes. He'll get them going. You know, a few of them looked like they needed a rocket up their backsides after that first half, and then you just expected Liverpool's greater quality to show in the second half.
Liverpool's stellar players, that famous front three, have been unusually in the shadows, and Jurgen Klopp, Andy, interestingly, was sending them out promptly here.
It came from the throwing, didn't it? Messina with the throwing.
It went over the top and it bounced, and I think Lovren was stood. I can't remember who was pinning him. Someone, I think it might have been Deeney, who pinned him, and it went over the top of the pair of them.
And it was those two runs, Doucouré from deep, Sarr from deep across the front post with Robertson's blind side. It was actually such a clever goal without a lot of actual team move, without a lot of team passes actually.
It was a strange goal, but I can remember thinking that because Lovren played, at the time for Liverpool, he was maybe fourth choice centre half, and I thought that was where Watford might be able to get at the Liverpool defence.
You know, certainly it was a real rarity to see. You know, I think it was Day and Lovren partnering Virgil van Dijk that day, to see them kind of, you know, torn to shreds in the way they were.
And then Sarr scored that opener. It's 1-0 and it's dreamland.
Deeney occupying Lovren, Sarr coming in the back post, got us to a perfect start.
But even then, that was early on in the second half, and it was kind of a case of, well, okay, that's great, but they're probably going to need to score more goals.
Hughes's little back heel down the line, and then Troy just kind of, it was almost a little bit of a hit and hope. I think he'd probably admit that into the channel, but you know it's not a hit and hope with Sarr's pace.
It was a great ball from Deeney. Deeney was really causing them problems that day, and when Deeney's like that, and when he was like that for Watford, he was such a good player, causing defences problems.
And the fact he can run in behind him and burn Van Dijk, who was the best defender in the world at the time, and the coolness and the calmness of Sarr to chip over Alisson, again, one of the best keepers in Europe.
It was such a composed finish, it was untrue, and he was so cool under pressure.
Bah, quand j'ai marqué un premier but, bah, je suis content, je suis très content parce qu'Abdullah il m'a donné un bon ballon.
Deeney, decent ball, Sarr away from Van Dijk, away from Lovren, Ismaïla Sarr! Watford 2 to the good.
You know what, I think the thing is, within Liverpool's individual quality, I think Lallana hit the post in the second half, and I thought if they get one, especially with a 2-0 scoreline, it could have swung potentially that way.
And I think Liverpool at that point was stunned. I think they were stunned, and I didn't think it was over, but I thought actually Liverpool looked like they're not going to get out of this. That was an error which is, you know, almost unheard of that season. He was put under pressure well by Watford, and again it's Sarr. I mean, Sarr caused them so many problems. You know, probably showcasing his talents maybe against Klopp, because we know that Klopp's an admirer.
Ouais, c'est ce jour-là. Tout le monde me connaissait, tout le monde m'a envoyé un message. J'ai beaucoup d'abonnés sur Instagram, j'ai beaucoup d'abonnés. Ouais, ça me fait plaisir aussi.
But you know, he did really well initially, Sarr, and then the pass back to Deeney was great. And Deeney had quite a lot to do there. He had a defender close to him. He had a defender on the line, and he almost had to squeeze it in between the pair. And he didn't smash it. And he didn't really curl it. It was kind of a cross between the two. It was fantastic. It was a great finish.
Even when the third goal went in, like, I'm still thinking there's still time here. There's still time. Do you know what I mean? Troy's goal was unbelievable. What a finish as well. But yeah, even then I'm thinking, oh my God, like the Liverpool can score 3 goals in 2 or 3 minutes easily.
I think with Watford, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
We've been 2-0 up before and throw it away, but I think when that third one went in, I felt like I was on something, if you know what I mean. The feeling is just amazing.
I think when we got the third goal, and with Troy's celebration, you could tell that they all knew that they won it at that point.
In goes Sarr. Alisson is committed. Sarr can't get a shot away. Oh my word, but Deeney does! And he is loving that!
You know, obviously once the third one goes in, you just know it's absolutely done and dusted. And yeah, Liverpool looked pretty shell-shocked come the end, because you know, in a season when, you know, they pretty much had everything their own way, that was a real anomaly.
Watford aren't just beating the would-be champions, they are pulling away!
Deuxième, c'est pareil aussi. Troy, il m'a mis un ballon aussi, un bon ballon aussi, j'ai marqué.
Playing it for Ismaïla Sarr! There was his hat-trick moment. Oh.
3-0 down away from home when you haven't played very well, and I think they just took their foot off the pedal a little bit, Liverpool, and at 3-0 Watford were absolutely flying, and I thought at that point that's it, it's done.
Van Dijk, that's what it's come to.
I didn't expect Liverpool to not score. I thought they might have scored at least one, but it was really great that Watford scored 3.
The Rookery roar. Invincible no more. Liverpool lose. And that is your headline.
So that's as good as it gets. It's up there with winning like a cup final or something like that. Like the Wolves semi-final at Wembley, it was up there with that. You know, the against all odds kind of feeling. It's you don't get many of them in football. Honestly, I've been in football long enough to know you don't get many of them in football. So you have to savour it and you have to enjoy it.
It's probably one of the best atmospheres here at Vicarage Road. Obviously, the Leicester game would beat that, but it wasn't far off that. Just the noise of that crowd, and not just in there, but everywhere around the ground. I can remember people in the crowd almost just looking round at us, and Derek was alongside me, and their faces were like, what is going on? How are we doing this against a team that are going to win the Premier League title and who haven't been beaten for such a long time, and we've just gone and played them off the park and walloped them? It was just an incredible feeling.
I think that's probably, again, one of the best atmospheres I've heard inside the Vic, and I probably didn't appreciate how good some of the goals were at the time, because you're so engrossed in the game and you're so involved in it that I kind of lost track about how good some of the goals were. But the Rookery was bouncing that day, and the 1881 were on form, so for sure one of the best I've experienced.
I think it's one of the best atmospheres, and we've been to a few occasions with like the cup finals and things, but yeah, because nobody give us a chance really, and you know, it shows that underdogs can come out on top.
Yeah, I think it was just a reminder that, you know, unless you're absolutely bang on it every single week that the Premier League can trip you up. From Liverpool's perspective, no real harm done. It was a shame that obviously it meant the Invincibles tag kind of went out the window. There's no question, and Watford weren't fortunate. They were just much better on the day and deserved their victory. It was really good because you didn't really hear Liverpool that much, but yeah, Watford's fans are always really loud and it's really nice.
When I think about that Liverpool game, I think of Molly. It's the same, it works on the opposite sort of end of the spectrum, but no, rightly so it should as well. If ever you want something to make you feel good, just look back at that video, look back at even the little YouTube clip of me walking her out, and you can hear the excitement in her voice and how much she's buzzing to be walking out alongside these incredible Liverpool players. But like I said earlier, I honestly think that they bought us a little bit of luck that night.
It made me really happy. Like, if I want to think about something that makes me happy, this is always one of the first things I think about.
Click here to subscribe.